Welcome to another episode of First Past the Post podcast. I'm delighted to say we're joined by a very special guest this evening, three-time champion jockey Oisin Murphy. Oisin, how are you?
Very well, thanks, lads. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. Can't wait to hear about some of the stories you can tell us that you've gone through in your racing career so far, and a bit more about you as well. So we're looking forward to it.
No, cheers, gents. Cheers. I'll tell you. I promise to entertain you.
Thanks for that.
So we'll get straight into it then. So tell us a bit about your background into racing. Was it sort of always in the family? Did you start off at a young age, and was it always your dream to become sort of like a flat jockey?
Yeah, my parents and my grandparents all follow racing, and it was on the television at home all the time. My uncle Jim was a really successful jump jockey. He didn't ride a high number of winners every year, but he managed to ride some good horses like Bin Derry. He won an English Grand National on, and Tim Bera an Irish Grand National, and Best Mate won 3 Gold Cups. And actually all his success came from kind of 1999 to 2002. Actually 2003, he had a good season 2003 in Ireland. And I was obviously very young. I was like 6, 7, 8, 9. And yeah, I used to kind of idolize him, watching him on television. And my grandfather, who I spent quite a bit of time with, was a big flat racing fan and was a huge Kieran Fallon, Mick Cannan, Coolmore fan. And I was watching all the big races and seeing Coolmore dominate. And I wanted to be part of it one day. And obviously, as I got a little bit older, I was still very small, and show jumping was the thing. The Irish riders have a very strong show jumping team. There's so many young girls and young boys that kind of go into that. So that was kind of my full-time job outside of my schooling from the age of 7 to 14. And Jim asked me, once he started training, he asked me to ride work. And I was a little bit apprehensive about this. I'd never ridden a racehorse, and it's a completely different style of riding. And without boring you too much, guys, the first horse I rode was supposed to be very quiet, and I ended up doing about 5 laps out of control on this sand gallop, and it's 4 furlongs round. So I went 2 miles on sand without being able to pull up, and that was scary and exciting all in one. And I thought, well, I can't finish on that note. I better come back a few more times and improve and at least say I can ride. So I did that, and I kept riding out. And then he thought, well, you're tiny. Show jumping, is an expensive sport. If you'd like, you could try and be a jockey, but you need to do well at school. So I spent my summer holidays then at Fozzie Stacks in Tipperary, my first kind of trip away. And a little bit of Charlie Swans, who I obviously idolized watching as a child. So this was like massive for me. And then it got even bigger and better than that. I went to ride out for Aidan O'Brien. And I just to describe that for you guys, it's like if you're a United fan or a Chelsea fan and you get to walk into the dressing room and actually meet the players that you've been watching on television, and then up on top of that, maybe be able to train with them. Like, this was the opportunity I was being given. And I rode some incredible horses. I rode Ruler of the World, Work, maybe one of his first pieces of work as a back-end 2-year-old. And he went like miles clear of the rest of them. And I just had a great experience there. And I asked Aidan or my family, kind of all these decisions were made for me. So it was my idea to go show jumping because I loved it. And then the jockey thing wasn't really my idea, but I was becoming addicted. And my uncle decided that he would approach Aidan O'Brien about me being his apprentice. And Aidan said, look, I have my own children, but I'm very happy to recommend him. And I think he should go to England. He's small and light. And Jim said, well, why not Andrew Balding, Claire Balding's brother? And Andrew hadn't been absolutely flying. He had an Oaks winner with Casual Look, and he had some decent horses, but he wasn't at the same levels he's at now. And it was a great breeding ground for apprentices. William Buick had just been there, and David Probert was still there, as he is now. And I went to Andrews, and that's kind of put me in the position where I was able to go on from October 2012 to now.
Obviously, yeah, you're a flat jockey. I know you're a big fan of the jumps as well, and you was actually at the festival. Who was your standout performer of the week?
To be honest, guys, I love Facile Vega. I would love to ride him in a staying flat race. I think he's a champion. I think if he settles down mentally, he could be, a horse of a lifetime. Let's see what he can do. And if he never jumps, it doesn't really matter. Obviously, being by a walk in the park, you'd expect him to be able to jump. Guys, it was very important for me to go to Cheltenham. I suppose a lot of the public have been following me on social media or whatever, and I went off it for a while just to clear my head a little bit and really kind of get into a routine of when I'm not riding, and obviously I'm sober, so I wanted to be able to have a routine where my head wasn't minced. And then I got to a stage where I thought I could get back on social media, and I'm very comfortable on it now. And going to Cheltenham was a big outing for me. Seeing people that probably haven't seen me in a long time, seeing racing fans and supporters who aren't sure if I've gone off the Richter scale altogether and I'm in some mental institute. But no, it was an important few days for me to just get through, and I really enjoyed the Tuesday. I thought it was top class racing, lovely weather. Unfortunately, Wednesday was very damp, and then I shot off to Spain to go show jumping. But it was it's one of my favorite weeks of the year, guys. I think we are really blessed to look forward to that every year,
Yeah, and obviously you mentioned your show jumping there. We know it's like a big passion of yours. I mean, is that always been a passion of yours since a young age as well? And I mean, obviously you're still doing it now. Like you say, you went over to Spain, and am I right in saying you actually did you have a winner out there in the show jumping?
Yeah. Yeah. So I have two nice horses, and they're, to put it in racing terms, lads, they're probably Group 3 horses running in decent handicaps, with obviously an amateur jockey on board. So we managed to get the job done, and I'm privileged because I dreamt about that as a young boy. I wrote to the Army Equitation School, who have a show jumping team, and they were like really good. They sent me a lot of feedback, and my parents supported the whole idea. And I did that from like 9 to 14, and I never thought I'd have the chance to show jump again, really, even for fun, because the racing schedule was so hectic. And last year I managed to do a little bit of Hickstead. I rented a horse in June. I mean, it's crazy to think how I managed to find the time, but I did. And then this winter I did a lot of Spain at a tour called Oliva Nova. And then I did another tour in Spain, the Sunshine Tour, which is about, I don't know, an hour and a quarter northwest of Gibraltar. So it's really helped me fill the time. And I love riding horses, like some jockeys, it's a job for them, and they wouldn't ride for free. They need to, it's just a task. Whereas it excites me, no matter if it's any really equestrian sport,
Yeah, and obviously, I mean, can you just explain for like maybe people listening as well, like how good does it feel when you're on sort of like a top quality horse? I mean, I suppose obviously you can't really describe it. I mean, because I relate to top horses, like they're athletes, aren't they? I think it's fair to say. And
yeah,
how can you describe what it's like being on a really, really good horse?
Yeah, it's lovely to have the confidence that kind of that they're going to have energy and ability to take off whenever you like. That's a major thing. And also these good horses, you tend to build up a relationship with them because you're actually afforded the opportunity to ride them in their exercise and also at the races, and you get to know them and you admire most of them are very intelligent. I've yet to ride a superstar horse that's thick. You admire them for a lot of things, like alcohol free. She's quite famous. She's very, very moody in the stable. She tries to scare people, but she would never actually go through with it and attack with her mouth, though she'll come very close. And she can kick out as well, and she might miss your shin by a couple of inches, but actually she is just testing you. She's never kicked or bitten anyone. So yeah, you get to know them, and like Kamiko, he would nip you, and like to the point where you think he might draw blood, but then he lets go. And they just have all their little idiosyncrasies, and you enjoy them for what they are.
One of my questions actually was about alcohol free. She's a horse I'm really fond of. Is she staying in training, and do you know how she's working at home?
Yeah, alcohol free is very good. I think she came in a little earlier this year than she did last. I'm unsure what Andrew's first target with her might be, but all the top mile races are on the radar. We obviously really respect Baid. And last year I suggested to Andrew that I was very keen on dropping her back in trip for the Haydock Sprint Cup. Maybe this year, depending on what happens, they might consider that. I'm not saying the sprint division is weak, because I really admire King Power's horses. Art Power and the sprinter by Bungle in the Jungle that won the Nunthorpe. Her name escapes me, but I know her sire. The very, very fast other filly, Tim Easterby's. And also Dragon Symbol. So look, they're three, and Oxted, let's not forget him. They're three superstar sprinters, four in my opinion. But I just think you often get slow ground at Haydock, and let's see how she goes. But I might be having a chat with Andrew later in the season. And this isn't pre-warned, guys. I haven't spoken to Andrew or Jeff Smith about this yet. But it's just I'm not the trainer. I'm very much, this isn't my job, but I do live, dream, and breathe them, and I do come up with these mad ideas sometimes, and sometimes they listen to me.
And yeah, obviously Liam mentioned obviously alcohol-free horse he's fond of. There's one horse that you know really well that I'm fond of, and he's obviously been retired now, is Ben Battle. What was he like to ride? Because obviously, you won on him a few times, and I mean, that horse just seemed to go everywhere, didn't he? He did it everywhere worldwide, and he's just sort of a superstar. I mean, what was he like to ride and have a relationship with?
I'm really pleased you mentioned him. So I went to Doncaster and to ride a 3-year-old for Said bin Sarur, and Said said, I've got a very nice horse. You ride one, and the other one Josie rides. And I said, well, I'd like to ride both. Well, he said, no, Josie's been riding work, so she needs to ride one. And I think Dream Castle is faster than Battle. So you ride Dream Castle, and Josie can ride Ben Battle. Anyway, they both won on that day. And guys, I'll talk about Ben Battle now in a second, but just Dream Castle. If Dream Castle didn't run away too keen in the Greenham, I think he'd have won it by 10 lengths. And Barney Roy was behind that day, and he was an extremely talented horse. He had a few issues afterwards, and I know he won a Group 1 in Dubai, but I don't think he achieved, no one's fault, achieved what he should have done. If anything, it was my fault for not really jumping slow at Newbury and trying to get him to relax. So they entered the scene, both of them on the same day, which is just extraordinary. Two machines. Yeah. But Doncaster is a lovely track. And I didn't ride Ben Battle until I think the Derby. And I didn't know much about it until about 2 weeks before. And Tony said, we'll stick a hood on him. I'm not sure. Tony is Said's right-hand man. Not sure if he'll stay, but it's the most important race. And Said said, no pressure, you go out and do. Very happy with the horse, do whatever you like. And of course, as horses can do, guys, he fell asleep in the hood, and he missed the break about 15 lengths. Anyway, he ran home to finish off very strongly in the Derby. We didn't really find out about his stamina. I was gutted. Race was over before it started. But they backed him up, and he ran at Royal Ascot in the Hampton Court. Thought he'd win. He didn't have a hard race at Epsom, which was a blessing. Like he could have had a hard race if he was keen and amongst them, didn't stay, might have not won at Ascot. Lovely trip round. I was obviously not full of confidence at this stage. It was 2017. I was in the Qatar job, but and they're trying to really help me and support me, but I hadn't achieved at the top level yet, and I was feeling that pressure, self-pressure. And yeah, Ben Battle won there, and he just continued, guys. Like, he won a Group 1 in Germany, a Group 1 in Dubai. He won that Group 2. he ran to 128 or something crazy at Newmarket one day in the Joel Stakes. And he's an absolute airplane. The best temperament, the will to win, the intelligence, the relationship I had with him. You know, he's the type of horse that you really fall in love with, and I'm not soft when it comes to that. You know, I've ridden so many thousand horses, but he's one of a kind. And as a type, he had his issues. He was very, very heavy, and you know, he had a lot of hiccups along the way with his training, and he wasn't the easiest horse to like have a clear run with all the time. And yeah, he just kept coming back for more. And winning the Joel Stakes at the end of last season, I was obviously under severe pressure. Was a fantastic way to finish his career. And he's by Dubai, out of a Group 1 winner in Bahrain, and he's got his place at stud in Japan now. Yeah. So I hope he's very successful.
Just moving on to Japan there, I know you ride a lot of Japanese horses. We see at Maidan the other day, I mean, just how good they are. Is there any reason why, or, you know? Yeah,
it's very, very simple, lads. Yeah, they bought the best or a lot of top quality mares. So from the 200,000 mark to the 1 million mark, from the US and Europe, basically Arcana, Tats and Goffs and Keeneland, and maybe a few more sales in America over the last 30 years. And they've bred them with their stallions. And they were probably a little bit worried about traveling them abroad. You know, they used to travel in massive numbers. And now Mr. Yahagi's I obviously ride for him when I'm not suspended. He's quite an outgoing, fun guy who's open to everyone. And I think everyone, the JRA, the Japanese Racing Association, have encouraged the Japanese trainers and owners to take the chance of bringing them abroad. And I don't see their success stopping. I think, you know, they're going to be taking the money home from these international meetings for a long time. And look, I thought I could win the Arc on Chronogenesis last year. It was a major ride for me to pick up. And the ground went soft, and for whatever reason, she didn't finish her race. We haven't seen her since. Yeah, I mean, her work before that was just unbelievable. It's only a matter of time before they win the likes of the Arc and the King George and everything. I'm afraid, you know, we walking around studs in Ireland and England, we're fascinated by speed. Memas is a top class sire, but it's unlikely he's going to breed you a 1.5 mile horse. And yeah, because of our fascination with that speed, they're not fascinated by that in Japan. A lot of the sprinters have to run over 6, 7 and a mile because Japanese owners and trainers don't care. They just target the big Group 1s, you know. It's like Deep Impact used to run over 2 miles. And we know what he's done with the likes of Saxon Warrior and stuff, guys. And look, the fact he covered a lot of European mares in the latter stages of his career, you know, it's unsurprising if he's going to be the grandsire of some sprinters in future. So yeah, I just admire their approach. They have a great model. The JRA is incredibly well funded. It's regulated, mind. You know, they all have to train on. There isn't private training centers. There's private pre-training centers, which for the people that don't understand that, it's like you get the horses to a certain level of fitness before you send them to the actual trainer. There's a couple of them going on, but then they're regulated at Miho, which is near Tokyo, training center, Miho training center, and the other one is Rito, which is near Kyoto. So they're hours away from each other, and yeah, it's a fascinating place. And I watched Epifanea win the Japan Cup in 2014 with Christoph Simeon, and I was having a tough time with my kind of career at the time. Japan Cup is in November. I had lost my claim, and I didn't feel like I was striving like I wanted to. You know, you always want things to happen quicker than they do. Yeah. And yeah, that was a massive day for me. And really, I set my task out then stall out then that I'd like to get to Japan one day. And that's what I did.
Brilliant. Yeah. And so what would you say would be the best sort of win you've had on a Japanese horse? Would you say it was when you won at the Breeders' Cup, or I remember when you won on Deirdre as well over in England? Yeah. What would you say is the best sort of win you've had on a Japanese horse?
Yeah, I mean, the Breeders' Cup was massive for me as a jockey to win a Group 1 on dirt. It at America's biggest festival is humongous. But winning the Japan Cup, I'm the youngest jockey ever to do it, and I galloped the horse. I felt like I was part of the team leading up to the race, and I thought he could win, and he had the perfect trip round on the rail, and it was a career best performance by a long way, and I got a lot of satisfaction out of that. There was 110,000 people there. When I came back to Tokyo afterwards, Shinjuku Station, which is one of the biggest train stations, kind of travel centers in the world, but certainly the biggest in Japan. There was Suave Richard and I in bright lights all that night. When I checked into the hotel, all the staff were like bowing and everything. I mean, it was just a surreal experience, and you don't understand the magnitude of that until you're in the middle of it. And I tried to soak it up, but of course I was quite young, and I want to win another Japan Cup.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously you're a hero out there, aren't you, in Japan? I mean, it's really it's mad, really, isn't it? How sort of the reputation you've got out there is brilliant to see, and I'm sure a lot of people involved in racing are proud to see that as well.
Yeah, perhaps. Obviously, you're always worried about your reputation, but when I came back from the France Gallo 3-month suspension, they supported me. They gave me my first big rides back in Dubai. Mr. Yahagi did, and as did Marco Botti in the Shima Classic and Marco Botti in the Dubai Turf. And I really appreciate that. And hopefully, I told my Japanese interpreter and Mr. Kaneda, who trained Almond Eye, and Mr. Yahagi, that I was going to be off for quite some time. Nobody probably expected the length of time I received, but the fact I was honest and open, the same with all the English trainers that I ride for. I hope they'll give me those opportunities again, because you can only be allowed so many lives, and a friend of mine said you're like a cat with 9 lives, but you've ran out. So yeah, this is probably it's unfortunate really at 26. I feel like I've come to the end of the road of opportunities, and it's either for me to make or break it from now on.
Yeah.
And you just touched on it there with your suspensions. Like, sort of, how hard has it been to deal with over the past year? And obviously we will see you back in the saddle. What are sort of your aspirations when you get back to racing?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the BHA panel were angry that I managed to keep riding through 2020 and 2021 with the massive weight over my shoulders, and and keep it hidden from the press, and also be champion jockey. I think they're angry at, and the people are angry at both points. But firstly, I couldn't go to the press or tell anyone, because the BHA didn't bring the charges onto me until the end of the season. And secondly, I needed to be champion jockey for myself, because I felt like there was a lot of people in the BHA, and mostly them actually, that were hoping that I crack and do them a favor and stop riding and allow William Buick to be champion jockey, because over the last couple of years he's got no bad press, but yeah, that was pretty hard, and I felt like I was treated like a criminal during the inquiry. I broke COVID rules, and I think so did a lot of people. I'm very sorry for breaking them. I didn't infect the jockey population, thank God. And yeah, I'm 11 months is the time they've given me for that, and they fined me 31,000. And guys, I don't mind actually if you write about this, or if this is this is very much honest and open from me. They fined me £31,000 because they thought that during my isolation period I won 310 grand from my connections, and they automatically assumed and this is true, that I was on 10%. These are supposed to be racing fans that read the rule book. You don't get 10% in Britain. You get less than 7% for win money and less than 3%. So they probably miscalculated my fine by more than 50%. And when they're reading out their verdict at the end, you're supposed to say thank you for my 14 months and 31 grand. I really appreciate your fair decision making. Well, of course, that's not true, you know, because to miscalculate a suspension when these are qualified people, that's really nonsense. But I chose not to appeal thus far anyway, because I thought I have enough bad press, and there really is no excuse for not following the COVID protocols. You know, like people were dying in different countries, and here I was trying to escape the stress of a 7-day suspension I didn't think I deserved from Ayr.
Yeah.
And also trying to go for a jockey's championship that I feel like in September it's always going to slip away, because you know I'm working very hard. But we don't have the numbers of maidens to come out at the back end of the season that I can really compete in that type of race, and we know they're very important. With the William Buicks because of Charlie Appleby and Tom Marquand because of William Haggis. I felt like it was difficult, and I went to Mykonos and had a very quiet time because the island was being evacuated, but that was the rock I perished on, and I held my hands up, and they took full advantage of it. And obviously the alcohol breaches, guys, I know everyone's kind of intrigued. So it was 11 months for the COVID, and then it was 3 months for the alcohol. And I kind of, through 2018, I was drinking a lot, but not never in the morning. You know, I never got to the stage of drinking in the morning before racing or anything. But on a day off, for example, if I wasn't racing, it didn't matter. I would definitely be drinking because I always had a driver. And then through 2019, I found it very tough at stages. I had a great start to the season 2019, and then Danny Tudhope was basically level with me or even past me. And Frankie actually helped change my mentality a bit. He told me to stop panicking, that he believed in me and I was the best young jockey in the world. And of course, when someone like that says that to you, it's a game changer. And I basically ended up winning that championship very easy. So that wasn't too stressful. And then 2020, COVID started off terrible. I was drinking every day at home. Then I pitched up to France one day to do a drug test. No butter, pissed in the canister. Riding at York a month later, and it comes up with a failed drug test. And I panicked, but I thought the only way to deal with this is head on. So I called David Redvers, our racing manager, Sheikh Fad, and Andrew Bolden, and said, listen, I'm innocent. I don't know how I'm going to prove it, but I will do my best. And Paul Struthers called me and he said, look, you need to be very sure now, because you're going to look like an idiot. And said, no, genuinely, I remember the night I was riding in France the next day. I had to leave at 6 o'clock and to drive to Newmarket to take a private jet with Michael Bell and David Redvers and whatever. And anyway, I asked, could I do the hair sample? That came back negative. And the BHA were kind of quiet about it. I must say they weren't giving me a hard time, but I was always waiting on France Gallo to come and say, okay, we're setting this date as the hearing date. You can't ride anymore from this date on. And I'm trying to accept big rides internationally, you know, for the Japanese, for Andre Fab, for all these people I dreamt about riding. And it took its toll on me. I couldn't sleep at night, drinking, to excess, lads. I was drinking like at least a bottle of champagne or a bottle of vodka every night. It could be 2 bottles of champagne because you get immune to it. And the end of 2020, David Redvers said to me, listen, Oisin, I love you to bits, but you need to get hold of your drinking. And I thought, this fella doesn't have a clue, you know, about my drinking. My life's going absolutely fine. It was all the pressure. And anyway, I did actually take it on board. And during my 3-month ban, I had periods of being off the drink and periods of not. And before I came back in 2021, I did like 11 days off the drink. And I thought, geez, that's great. But sorry, I'm talking about this, lads, but maybe it's interesting to some people. And then I was very focused at the start of 2021, and I had a bad chester. I knew I had ordinary rides going into it, and I stayed up till like 2 o'clock in the morning again, like drinking champagne, not drinking the shit out of it with like party. Sat at home with my mother, my dog. Okay, my mother probably went to bed at 11, but like I remember I put up an Instagram. I showed the BHA as well, like 1 o'clock in the morning of me sat with the dog, and went to Chester the next day, thought I was doing a urine sample, just a urine sample for drugs, peed in the thing, and it blew up for alcohol. And heard nothing about it. Again, it takes a month. And then I asked them to test the B sample. There was a big problem with the B sample. So now I'm waiting for the BHA to say you're gone again, because it's a minimum of 3 months that they give you, because this will be my third one within a 3-year period. And sorry, this was going to be my second one within a 2-year period. So I knew I was getting 3 months. Anyway, I didn't know what was going to happen, trying to ride well. But I told everyone, if I can get to Royal Ascot and over and done with, well, then I don't give a shit. But of course, that's not true. But you've got to tell yourself this, because you're fighting mind games. Well, anyway, Royal Ascot was great. And then I move on to the next meeting, drinking the shit out of it. But I'm going fine. I went to Glorious Goodwood, blacked out every night of that week, but blacked out early, so I'm sober in the morning. I got to October. I was at the sales with Sheikh Fad and David Redvers the day before Newmarket, and when I blew up the breathalyzer again. It's a Thursday. And I told them I don't want to go to Chelmsford. I've got shit rides. William Buick has 4 favourites. I may as well hand him the championship trophy. And Sheikh Fad said to me, you know, you've put up with this for the last 2 years. If you're big enough to do that and carry on, you're going to get this championship over the line. Anyway, I got to Chelmsford and I rode as well as I could. They didn't win, but William had a bad night. He had like 1 winner. And I came back and I went to my friend's birthday dinner, drank the shit out of it. I mean, literally just blind, you know, trying to escape all what's going on. And then went to the Yard pub, blacked out. Obviously got in an argument with a guy that I'm actually friends with, who thankfully was very sound about it and has forgiven me. And the next day I went to Newmarket and didn't have the breathalyzer in the car, so I had no idea what I was, but you know, had no memory of the night before, so didn't know how much I drank, but should have been alarmed that I couldn't remember. And got to the races and there was no breathalyzer. And the BHA arrived and they tested one person, and that was me. And I got done. And that was a pretty bad drive home, lads. You know, like a lot of people disappointed, the backstabbing people taking advantage of my situation, saying, look at this idiot, he doesn't deserve another chance, get rid of him. And I thought, no, bollocks to you guys. You don't know what I've been putting up with for the last 2 years. I've tried to control my drinking. I haven't been on the lash for the last 4 years. You know, I've made a conscious effort to control, and I can't. I need some help, and I've realized now that, you know, this is my decision. And I went and I won the Cesarewitch the next day, and I stuck my tongue out across the line, and that was at all the people the day before that came up to, like Andrew Balding and David Redvers and my girlfriend, who's Bjorn Nielsen's Stradivarius owner's daughter, and said that your jockey or your employee or your boyfriend is a waste of space. The next week, and the Jockeys Championship was just to shut everyone up. And it's sad when it comes down to that, guys, because when it came to lifting the trophy, you know, some of my anger was at a lot of it was at myself. Some of it was at the BHA. for messing me around all season, and for waiting for an opportunity to really to hit me hardest. And yeah, I lifted that trophy with no happiness. But I was very, very pleased I did it with everything going on. And, you know, the BHA had a massive, you know, good go at me. And I had a very fair hearing, you know, like I felt like the lady and the gentleman representing the BHA, Tomas Nolan was the BHA solicitor. I thought he was very, very fair. He was, and the woman was, just, I thought 14 months was more than I get. So, you know, there'll be a lot of happy people. And, you know, it's amazing that the BHA doctor, Jerry Hill, hasn't contacted me since I've been off. He never contacted me all of last year. You know, he must be very busy with his role in the BHA, obviously. But he talks about mental health, and we had to get rid of saunas due to it affecting jockeys' mental health. Well, my mental health was in a pretty bad state, as everyone's aware, and he didn't pick up the phone once. And yeah, it's just an interesting point of view, you know. I think they'll be very happy that there'll be a different champion jockey this year. I think, you know, William Buick deserves to be odds-on favourite, and he's going to take a fair bit of beating. And hopefully I can come back quietly next February. Yeah. Yeah, that's another thing, lads. When I came back from the drugs suspension, the normal routine is, and I spoke to some of my friends who had been in that position before, you just reapply for your license and they give it to you. But they decided that they didn't want me riding straight away. And it almost caused me missing my rides in Dubai that I had been booked for, you know, the likes of Love's Only You for Mr. Yahagi. And it wasn't a part of a license criteria. Dr. Jerry Hill and someone high up at the BHA who probably has no interest in racing but likes to create rules and make themselves feel good, decided I was going to postpone my comeback. And the funniest thing was, it was in the Racing Post for the week leading up to it. I don't know if you can remember it or not, that I was back and I had so many rides booked. And it was the night before I was due to ride at Linkfield that the BHA contacted me and said I couldn't ride. I mean, would that happen in Formula One or football or any other sport that you know?
Sheen, can I just quick?
I'm unsure.
Sorry to interrupt. Can I just say, Zoom's let us know that this is going to cut off in less than 1 minute, so we better wrap it up if that's okay. It's going to cut off any minute.
Would we be able to send you a link and sort of jump back on and finish off?
To do a part 2.
Can you do it straight away?
Yeah, we'll do that now.
Do it now.
All right, brilliant.
Cheers, Oisin. Thank you.
So that was part 1 with Oisin Murphy, and we'll be back with part 2 very soon. So thanks everyone for listening.